It's a charming 24 degrees here.
And Bendigo?
Yeah, 24 degrees. Very nice.
All right.
It's I think this is the first summer. Like, it's been an amazing summer.
At Bendigo.
One day over short, 2 days over short. So I think now there's tops on the street, but it's made
Yeah. Well, I mean, this summer is terrible, but it's still kind of, it's better than previous summers. All right, what am I doing? Starting a recording, just a second. All right, let's start with the Heart Sutra. First, I have to open the Heart Sutra, just a second. All right. I prostrated the Arya Triple Gem. Thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling on massive virtual mountains in Rajgir together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, composition of factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition of factors, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. No visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no objects of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element and so on up to including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance and so on up to including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, Bodhisattva relying on dwelling the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration, without fear, having completely passed beyond error to reach the end point of Nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the 3 times also manifestly completely awakened to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of the great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as the truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated, even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations I collect by listening to the teachings, I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Tuesday. So what I thought of doing today was to look at a few of the review questions that I sent out last week and use them as a basis for trying to get some clarity with respect to concentration and absorption, because I think that although we spoke about it today and also previous week, I feel that probably it takes some time to sort out those terms in our mind or to look at the distinctions. So I thought of using the review questions from previous week in order to do that, but also adding some more details just to make some more things more complicated. If we can make them more complicated, why not? So, sorry?
That's not the attitude.
Sorry. So actually, so to begin with, before we begin with that, if I were to ask, what's the reason for cultivating calm abiding? What would you say? Or what are the reasons for cultivating calm abiding? The reason, the main reason or reasons, what do you reckon? Sorry?
You have to concentrate enough to be able to explore what you're learning.
So you have to concentrate enough to be able to absorb what you're learning and what's in the text. People at home, what's the reason or the main reason for developing calm abiding?
Developing wisdom.
For developing wisdom.
Wisdom that
Just saying for special insight. Sorry, Oli, did you want to say something else?
no, I'm all good.
All right. Dechen?
Yeah, I think develop calm abiding. I think you develop a peace of mind and a stability that will enable you to pursue so many more practices. It
All right.
it really is a jumping board, isn't it? Calm abiding.
All right. So Christine is saying that she's with Jason.
And what did Jason say?
Jason said for developing special insight.
Yeah.
So, everything that you've said is correct. I mean, all those different things are served by the development of calm abiding, but the main reason from a Buddhist perspective is for the development of special insight. So in order to be able to completely eliminate all of our afflictions, we have to develop special insight. Special insight is not developed without calm abiding. So I guess that the first reason that you need to keep in mind is that you develop calm abiding in order to develop special insight. All the other things will also come to be. You develop a peaceful state of mind. You'll be more focused, not only on your study, but also in whatever you do, you'll have a greater degree of concentration. Your mind would be more nimble or more focused and nimble, so that whatever you do will be accomplished much easier. But the main reason, at least from a Buddhist perspective, is in order to develop insight, in order to eliminate our obscurations or afflictions. Jen is saying uncommon calm abiding is cultivated by Buddhists and refers specifically to the type of calm abiding that leads to the generation of special insights. Yeah, so from a Buddhist perspective, Terry is saying to be able to benefit, to be of benefit to others, mindfulness against the afflictions, great bliss. So all of those different things could be attributed to calm abiding, but the main reason is, as Jane pointed out, but also I think that Jason alluded to, is in order to develop special insight so that we can use that in order to eliminate the afflictions. So let's hold on to that to begin with, right? So why develop calm abiding? In order to develop special insight. It has to do also with a verse that we've covered at the beginning of the chapter that didn't specify it exactly in that way, but let's look at that. I managed to find the text. Just a second. There it is. So it says, having developed joyous effort in this way, in that way, I should place my mind in meditative stabilization or in absorption, concentration. The man whose mind is distracted dwell between the fangs of the afflictions. So long as the mind is distracted, will still dwell between the fangs of the afflictions. So in order to escape from the fangs of the afflictions, we need to develop concentration. But it's not just to escape from the fangs of the afflictions, it's to eliminate them altogether. So that brings to mind the next question. So there are different ways of eliminating the afflictions, different ways of antidoting the afflictions. What are the ways of antidoting the afflictions? Mindfulness. Sorry? Purification. People at home. All right, we have message, emptiness, meditation on emptiness. All right.
Yeah, generating bodhicitta.
To generate bodhicitta. Understanding of
we have the direct
rising.
and the indirect methods. Sorry.
Say it again, please, Ollie.
We have the indirect and the direct methods. The direct being emptiness, and the indirect being, like the opponents, to loving kindness as opposed to hatred and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. So altogether, to put a stop to the afflictions, I think that we can look at that in 4 different approaches. So first of all is to prevent the afflictions from arising from the outset. To prevent the afflictions from arising from the outset, we can cultivate mindfulness together with vigilance. As soon as we discover that an affliction pops up, immediately we apply an antidote. So to begin with, try to prevent them from rising from the outset, but also to stay away from the objects of our afflictions. So if you know that a certain thing gives rise in your mind to strong attachment, to strong anger and so forth, then remove yourself from a situation or try to prevent yourself from encountering that. That's one way. The second way is what Ollie referred to as applying, I call it applying local antidotes. So we have different antidotes taught in the Buddhist tradition in order to deal with certain states. Meditate on loving kindness or patience in order to antidote anger. Meditate on the unattractive aspects of an object when you have strong attachment towards that object. Meditate on the different classifications and divisions and so forth when you have pride. Meditate on rejoicing as an antidote for jealousy. Meditating on dependent origination in order to apply an antidote to you can say to actually all of the afflictions that we've mentioned up until now, but also to ignorance. So you can call them, or meditating on cherishing others in order to antidote onset of self-cherishing. Tonglen meditation, meditation giving and taking can remedy actually many different types of afflictions, anger and jealousy and pride and so forth when you open your heart to others. But I call them local antidotes in that you work with certain situations and you antidote them, but it doesn't prevent the afflictions from arising again in the future. So for example, suppose that for the last few weeks, I've been meditating on resentment towards Dechen, I can meditate.
Sorry, I'll mute myself.
Yeah, suppose. So, I can meditate on loving kindness for a while until I completely remedied that sense of resentment to Dechen and come to really like Dechen. It could happen. But it doesn't mean that I antidote resentment that I have to another person. I can have resentment to Ruby or resentment to someone else. So if I just meditate on loving kindness towards Dechen, I don't really antidote afflictions that can arise. I don't necessarily antidote afflictions that can arise with respect to others. So there are local antidotes that apply to certain situations that we can use them in order to stop a manifest affliction in a certain situation. So that's the second type of antidote, right? So we said, first of all, making sure that the affliction will not arise from the beginning as much as we can, but they will arise because we are affected by anger, attachment, and ignorance since time without beginning and up until now. So that's the first level. Second level is applying local antidotes to afflictions when they arise. Not only that, we can also, in some sense, prepare those antidotes in our mind through meditation on Tonglen, for example, where we extend a sense of loving kindness to all sentient beings. And if we stick with that meditation day in and day out, in time, it will also act as an antidote for other afflictions, for local afflictions that arise in our mind in certain situations. So that's the second level. Now, there's a third level and a fourth level, which deal with two aspects of the afflictions. So the third level suppresses manifest forms of the afflictions, which means that the potentials or the seeds of the afflictions are still in a mind stream, but we create a scenario in which, for the time being, the seeds are not activated, the afflictions are not manifest. So we call that abandoning manifest afflictions, but it's not abandoning afflictions together with the seeds. That's the third level, and I'll speak about it in a second. The fourth one is abandoning the afflictions together with the seeds. And so those two ways of dealing with the afflictions, either preventing manifest afflictions, antidoting or putting a stop to manifest afflictions. That's the third level. And the fourth level is eliminating the seeds of the afflictions. So these two levels of fighting against the afflictions are really important to the discussion that we had today with Geshe-la, but also to the discussions that we had in the previous week. So in general, there is common abiding that is common both to Buddhist and non-Buddhist. So just common abiding, the one that is common to Buddhist and non-Buddhist, can deal with manifest afflictions and prevent them from becoming manifest. Does not necessarily antidote the seeds of the afflictions, but at least it's preventing afflictions from becoming manifest. That's the third one. I will look at it in a couple of minutes. But the fourth one, which eliminates the afflictions and thereby ensures that they will never arise again. If the seeds of the afflictions are eliminated, they will never arise again, which means that it is basically, we're speaking about liberation. This is brought about through a union of common abiding and special insight, which means using your common abiding in order to develop wisdom that realizes emptiness, and taking it to the level in which it is a perceptual realization of emptiness that eliminates all the seeds of the afflictions. So I think that we are more used to that, right? So we are used to speaking of, used to that. We're used to, I guess if you've heard about it before, union of common abiding and special insight, developing wisdom that directly or perceptually realizes emptiness on the basis of common abiding. This is the actual antidote to the afflictions, in a sense that it eliminates the seeds of the afflictions. And if the seeds of the afflictions are eliminated, they will never arise again.
Is that the uncommon form of calm abiding?
Yeah, that's the uncommon one.
Thank you.
I mean, this is the uncommon way in which karma abiding is used. Because the thing that eliminates the afflictions is special insight, not karma abiding. I mean, the thing that eliminates afflictions from the root, which means eliminates the seeds, is special insight. But in order to develop that special insight, you need karma abiding that is cultivated in a Buddhist way. In a Buddhist way, which means that it needs, first of all, to be motivated by renunciation or the determination to live cyclic existence. And here in this context of Shantideva's text, if you want to become Buddha, it needs to be motivated by bodhicitta. Right? So you can say, therefore, that the special insight spoken of in this section or in this text is karma abiding that is motivated by bodhicitta. That will enable you to develop special insight that realizes emptiness perceptually, that is strong enough to eliminate the two obscurations, cognitive obscurations and afflictive obscurations. So, suppressing the afflictions, which means preventing them from becoming manifest, is done in the following way. So, Ruby, I don't think that you were here last week for the BSP sessions, right? So we used the chart, which I will put on the screen. We used this chart, which is on the Dropbox, which presents the three realms. So we have the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm. The formless realm has four absorptions here. They're called concentrations, but it's the word something in Tibetan, right? So the first absorption, second absorption, third absorption, and fourth absorption. The formless realm, again, has four absorptions. They're called infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness or nothing whatsoever, and the peak of cyclic existence. So these are, so the two higher realms, the form and formless realm, has four absorptions each. So when you attend the first absorption, you have suppressed all the afflictions of the desire realm. So anger of the desire realm cannot arise when you're in the first absorption. Attachment of the desire realm cannot arise when you're in the first absorption. Similarly, suppose that you have attained the fourth absorption. So all the afflictions which are associated with the levels below, the third absorption, second absorption, first absorption, and all the afflictions of the desire realm, they cannot become manifest. It happens because you have attained this deep level of concentration that has the ability to suppress all the afflictions that belong to the lower levels, which means that so long as you remain in that absorption, all those coarse levels of afflictions will not arise. But it's a temporary state in which you've just prevented them from arising. It's like putting the lid on some afflictions. They cannot arise so long as you're in that absorption. If that absorption declines, if it falls apart, then they arise again. And it happens because those absorptions are still within samsara. So you run out of merit at some point. You have attained an absorption. Sometimes, in some situations, you don't create more virtue or merit accumulating activities because you just dwell within the deep level of concentration that gives rise to a sense of oozing sense of bliss and well-being. So kind of you're completely engrossed in that state. So you do not create merit or virtue. And at some point, your virtue or merit will be depleted. Then this absorption will degenerate and you will fall down. And then afflictive states of mind will become manifest again. Right? So it's a temporary suppression of the afflictions. That's the third way of abandoning the afflictions. So it's abandoning them, but temporarily, not ultimately, not long-term, once and for all, but just a temporary cessation of the afflictions. So Jenny is asking, the nothingness in formless realm is it equivalent to emptiness, or just nothing appears to the mind? I don't know what the etymology is of nothingness, but it's not equivalent to emptiness, because non-Buddhist practitioners can also attain those absorptions. So a non-Buddhist practitioner can attain nothingness or nothing whatsoever, but it doesn't mean to say that. I think they probably haven't. Oops. Sorry? Yeah, I think that the batteries died, and I wonder if is it connected to the power? Maybe now it's working. All right. Cool. I think that should be okay now. It's sorry?
Yeah.
It's working now. All right. Thank you. So so nothingness is also an absorption that non-Buddhists can attain, or nothing whatsoever. And they don't attain it by meditating on emptiness. So it's not equivalent to emptiness. Maybe, and I think maybe that's an assumption, that's a guess, but I need to check it out. I think that it's one of those absorptions where you don't even have discrimination. So since you don't have discrimination, which means that the only thing that the discrimination that you have is being born in that absorption, and then another discrimination at the end of your life when you die in that absorption, but in between there is no discrimination whatsoever. Maybe that is the reason why it is called nothing whatsoever, or nothingness. Not sure. Yeah, actually, I think I've never seen a source that explains the names of those absorptions. Anyway, so Graham is asking, could you please briefly summarize the third and fourth levels of the affliction? So the third and fourth ways of putting a stop to the affliction. So the third level is putting a stop to manifest affliction, and that is done through the development of concentration, of calm abiding, and attaining an absorption. So when you do that, you suppress all the afflictions that belong to the levels below. That's the third level. You haven't eliminated the seeds, so the seeds are still there. And once your concentration declines, once it falls apart, those afflictions will arise again. That's the third level. The fourth one is when you have eliminated the seeds, and you can only eliminate the seeds of the afflictions once you develop a perceptual realization of emptiness. So to develop a perceptual realization of emptiness, you need a union of calm abiding and special insight focused on emptiness. Not only that, the union of calm abiding and special insight that is focused on emptiness is first off developed with a conceptual consciousness, but you continue to meditate on that union to the point in which a conceptual realization of emptiness becomes a perceptual realization of emptiness. So that is the fourth level of antidoting the afflictions, right? So altogether, the first one is trying to prevent them from arising from the outset. Second one is applying local antidotes. Third one is attaining a high level concentration of calm abiding and or an absorption. And the fourth one is to develop the actual remedy to the afflictions, which is wisdom perceptually realizing emptiness. So
can I ask a question?
Yes.
I mean, this just sounds so Gelukpa to me, your first, second, third, fourth absorptions, etc. I mean, how do you know when you have reached any absorption, let alone reach the second one, and then, you meditate, then you reach the third one? Like, how do you know?
Well, so let's look at this. So first of all, to attend the first absorption, you need to begin with attending calm abiding. So to attend calm abiding, you go through those 9 stages of mental placement until you attend calm abiding, and you have marks for attending calm abiding, which are the experience of physical and mental bliss, or physical and mental well-being that arises out of physical and mental pliancy that has been attained due to the cultivation of concentration using the 9 stages of mental abidings. So let's look at the definition of calm abiding. I think that I've opened. All right, I just opened it.
Did you like those definitions I sent you in the email?
I didn't agree with the definition of the definition of concentration. It's not the right one. They have a mistake. Yeah. So the definition of concentration that is calm abiding, it is a concentration first of all, right? So calm abiding is the mental factor concentration. It is a mental factor concentration which is imbued with pliancy, which means physical and mental pliancy. It is capable of evenly placing the mind at will on its object of observation, which means that you can stay single-pointed upon an object so long as you want to. It says often, even if you stay placed on that object for months and years, the mind will not waver. It will not wander to other objects because the mind became completely at will. So not only it is at will, it is also imbued with physical and mental pliancy. And here in the definition, it doesn't state that, but there is also physical and mental well-being, which are attributed to pliancy, or physical and mental bliss that is attributed to pliancy. Now, Lama Tsongkhapa in his Lamrim Chemo, he makes a point in saying that this bliss is not a physical or mental sensation. But the way that it is described, it feels that there is this oozing sense of well-being, which is attributed to having a body and mind that are completely pliant, completely serviceable to a single-pointed meditation, or a single-pointed, placement, which means that you do not experience physical difficulty. You do not experience any mental difficulty. You don't have to work hard in order to make the mind being placed upon single-pointedly upon the object. There's that oozing sense of well-being. So you can say pleasure, bliss, well-being, in whatever way you look at it. That comes once you've attained calm abiding, or together with calm abiding. So first of all, you attain that. So you will know for yourself what the mark is for attaining calm abiding when you attain it. If you see that your mind is at will, being single-pointedly placed upon an object, but also in having clarity, right? So you need to have the clarity aspect with calm abiding, because in the Lamrim Chemo, but also in the middling Lamrim, there's a point which states that you might confuse you might have subtle laxity, which means subtle unclarity with respect to the object. It is not completely clear, and you might mistake that to be the attainment of calm abiding. So you still need to make sure that you have utmost clarity of the object, and that you are able to remain single-pointed placed upon an object. The mind is at will, also imbued with physical and mental pliancy. So you will know that for your when you attain that, because your mind is not hidden to you, right? So you need to know the characteristics of calm abiding and to be able to assess yourself. Then there are 7 steps, right? The first one is calm abiding. There are seven steps which are called an access to an absorption, right? So you still continue to meditate on an access to an absorption until you attain the actual absorption.
Did access as an AXIS or ACCESS?
ACCESS, access. ACCESS.
Yeah, to access. Yep, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So there are 7 steps that we need to follow in order to attain an actual absorption. And there are teachings that tell you in more details what you need to do, although I think that for most of us, most beginners, I think, we don't really get really specific detailed instructions with respect to what we need to do in each one of those points in time, because I think the problem, once we get there, we'll get the relevant instructions. Now we mostly receive instructions with respect to calm abiding, what to do in order to attain calm abiding. But also, as Buddhists, our goal is not necessarily to attain each one of those absorptions. At some point, we will attain all those absorptions, because we do need to care for other practitioners. So in order to care for all practitioners, we need to know all paths, all states of existence within cyclic existence. So there will be at some point on a high level of the Bodhisattva development, we will have developed them. But this is not our goal. Our goal is still to attain calm abiding, because we want to develop as Buddhists, we want to attain calm abiding in order to develop insight. Lama Tsongkhapa says in the Lama Rinpoche that you can use the access to the first absorption, which means that you haven't even developed the first absorption. You can use the access in order to attain the state of liberation. So you can use it. It doesn't mean that you then need to prevent yourself from attaining the first absorption or the second absorption. You can still do that. I mean, we are different to each other, and things work differently for us as practitioners. So some will go on and develop other absorptions, and some will attain the state of liberation from within the access to the first absorption. It is said, as far as I remember, that the base the best mental support that you can use in order to develop an Arya path is the 4th absorption. So while you can attain the state of liberation and attain an Arya path from the access to the first absorption, you can also do that from the 4th absorption.
Can one achieve shamatha in one lifetime?
So can one achieve shamatha in one lifetime? Actually, it is said that when you look at the text, it says that one can achieve shamatha even within 6 months. But to attain that, you need to have the prerequisites for shamatha, which are not easy. So we're going to begin with looking at the prerequisites of shamatha, I guess, the next week or so. First of all, we're looking at eliminating the things which are incongruous with shamatha, which are abandoning the hustle and bustle of the world. But then we also have to isolate the mind from discursive conceptions. Now, the things which are conducive with calm abiding will also be explained by Shantideva, but in short, also Lama Tsongkhapa speaks about them in finding a favorable place for cultivating calm abiding, which means that you need to be protected from strong noise. You need to find a place where you have provisions which are easily obtained. You need to be protected from dangers, from the elements and so forth. A place that does not have sickness or wild animals and so forth. That's one thing, right? The place. You also need to have those who are Dhamma friends, which are conducive for that. So, for example, some people do a group retreat. They have their own retreat huts, but still they live, or retreat rooms, but still they live in the same house. So those are, you can say, this is a conducive company for cultivating calm abiding. Then you need to have lesser desire, to be more content, and to have pure ethics. So for us, if we think that we would like to practice calm abiding and attempt to achieve that, I think that first of all, we need to make sure that we have proper ethics. So either as a layperson or as a monastic, we need to make sure that we develop mindfulness, alertness, conscientiousness to guard our ethics well. But also we need to have worked on reducing our attachment and to be more content, without which our mind will still be subject to those great waves of attachment, which then will be a great hindrance. So if you have all the prerequisites, then it is said that you can attain it within 6 months or 12 months or whatever. So that those who are practicing it, those who have attended, yeah, it's can be done. And not only that, not only it can be done, also if you attend calm abiding, all the other qualities would be easily developed. So Oli, I'll look at your question in a second. So these 7 steps are steps that belong to the first, to an access to an absorption. So once you attend calm abiding, like for us, for example, when we first of all attend calm abiding, we attain the access to the first absorption. Now, each one of the other absorptions also has an access point. Here in this chart, we don't, it is not specified particularly, but there are still accesses to each one of those absorptions. And within each one of those access points, you need to go through those steps in order to attain the actual absorption. So let's look at the third, briefly, let's look at the third step in the access, which is called belief, or calm abiding in special insight. In order to be able to suppress the afflictions, you need to reach this level, the third level. So you attend calm abiding, then you continue with your meditation, and you reach this level of belief when you have a union of calm abiding and special insight. It is not necessarily focused on emptiness. The union of calm abiding and special insight can be focused on anything. So if you're non-Buddhist, you can attain a union of calm abiding and special insight focused on a phenomenon, on an image of something. You can attain a union of calm abiding and special insight that is not focused on emptiness, it's focused on something else. And use that as a way of suppressing the afflictions that belong to the lower levels. Yeah, it's still called special insight. So when you look at the explanation of special insight, there are different divisions of special insight. So there is special insight that is focused on the ultimate, and that is emptiness. And there's also special insight with respect to conventionalities or conventional phenomena. Impermanence, yeah. And even more so, when you look at the practice of Tantra, and it is explained in the context of the generation stage. So in one of the special features of High Yoga Tantra is the ability to attain a union of calm abiding and special insight at the same time. So from a sutra perspective, first of all, you attain calm abiding, and then you cultivate special insight from within the state of calm abiding. In High Yoga Tantra, they can be attained at the same time. And of the methods that are used in order to do that is a method of dispersal and withdrawal. So you kind of visualize that you emanate different things like 1 vajra, 2 vajras, 4 vajras, 8 vajras, 16 vajras, 32 vajras. And then you visualize that you gather them back exactly in the same sequence. So such, so you can meditate on that, or to emanate mandalas, or to emanate different things, or to develop a union of calm abiding and special insight focused on the body of the deity. So you do a meditation technique by which you scan the body of the deity, different parts of the body of the deity, the different implements. So you do an analytical meditation and then stabilize the meditation. At the end, on the basis of that combination, you can attain a union of calm abiding and special insight focused on the body of the deity. So this is a conventional phenomenon, and not special insight that is focused on emptiness. It's still called special insight because the definition of special insight is similar to the definition of calm abiding. So Special insight is special wisdom, which is also imbued with physical and mental pliancy that was induced by the force of analysis and was cultivated from within the state of calm abiding. So in calm abiding, the physical and mental pliancy arise because of the power of concentration. In special insight, physical and mental pliancy arise through the force of analysis from within the state of calm abiding. So I think that it is called special insight probably because of that physical and mental pliancy that come also with a physical and mental well-being. That arises from analysis, force of analysis, from within the state of calm abiding. Sorry?
Special insight will take you out of subject existence.
Yeah. Yeah, so special insight, you say, will take you out of cyclic existence. It's correct, but this is what you're referring to is a unique special insight. So when you look at Lama Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chenmo, he explains, it says that you cultivate calm abiding, and once you cultivate calm abiding, you can proceed in two ways. One way is progressing along a mundane path. A mundane path will lead you just to the attainment of absorptions, which means that you'll be still within cyclic existence, but you will ascend from one absorption to the next, and you can reach up until the peak of cyclic existence, the last absorption. In order to do that, you cultivate calm abiding together with a mundane insight. So it's a special insight, but it is a mundane insight, still within samsara. Or you can follow the green lane, the other path, which is cultivating supramundane insight. And the supramundane insight is the insight of selflessness, special insight focused on selflessness. So often we don't speak about it like that. We just speak of, in general, about the union of calm abiding and special insight that we need to develop. And the assumption that is made when we speak about it in this context is that we're speaking about the supramundane insight, which will get us out of cyclic existence. But in general, there are two types. There is mundane and supramundane. So Dechen is asking, so absorption isn't a mental factor. It's not necessarily a mental factor, it can be a mental factor. So we'll get to that in a second. Yeah, sorry. As I said, we can make things complicated, so why avoid that? We can do that. All right, so no, it can be a kind of, it doesn't have to be complicated. Actually, it can be also simple. But before we get to your question, then, if you're following a mundane path, you will cultivate those 7 steps. You could cultivate those 7 steps of the access point and reach the first absorption, for example. Once you reach the 3rd level here, belief, and you attain a calm abiding and special insight focused on something, you can suppress afflictions that belong to the desire realm, right? So all the afflictions that arise in our mind, right? So we have anger and attachment and pride and so forth. We're all familiar with that. They easily arise in our mind stream. If we want to prevent them from arising for a certain duration, we can attain the 3rd level of an absorption, the 1st level of an access to an absorption. And then think of how applicable the mind be to the development of a path of a realization of emptiness. In a sense that if your mind is not disturbed by all other afflictive states of mind, and you can hone the power of your mind to develop an insight into selflessness, how powerful the mind will become. Not only with that, but also if you use that in order to develop uncontrived bodhicitta. So you don't have anger and attachment that become manifest, like they do become manifest in our mind. So you attain a certain level of evenness of mind. It's not that other afflictions cannot become manifest. You still have afflictions that belong to the higher levels, to the higher absorptions. But for the time being, our cause afflictions do not arise. So you have a much better ability to develop deep level of compassion to sentient beings, and of course, on that basis, bodhicitta. So, in fact, in order to develop uncontrived bodhicitta, you will likely to have attained karma abiding before. So, to reach the first, to reach a union of karma abiding and special insight here in the third level, as I said, you can choose to do it in two ways: to follow a mundane path, or to follow a supramundane path, which means that you might focus on a conventional phenomenon in order to cultivate insight, or you might choose to focus on emptiness in order to cultivate insight. So if you don't use emptiness in order to cultivate insight, Geshe mentioned today a meditation technique that is often mentioned in relation to that. So this meditation technique is a technique in which you look at the coarseness of the lower levels and the peaceful aspects of the higher levels. So you think the desire realm is evil. I have so many afflictions and also so much pain in the desire realm. This is coarse, this is fault. I don't want to have that. But if I attend the first absorption, I would be able to dwell in a state of peace, much greater peace and much greater happiness and well-being than the desire realm. So you meditate on the faults of the lower realm, you suppress them, and you pursue the good attributes of the higher realm, the attribute of peace. So you can use that meditation technique to follow the path of a mundane union of karma abiding and special insight, which will help you to suppress the afflictions. So if you do that, if you also attend karma abiding that is affiliated with that, this is what we call a common karma abiding. So this karma abiding can exist for Buddhists, but it also exists for non-Buddhists. Many Indian practitioners or other practitioners of meditation concentration can attain that level of karma abiding, which is just karma abiding that helps you, that can make it possible for you to suppress afflictions of the lower levels. But then we have the uncommon karma abiding that we speak of in this context, which is motivated by bodhicitta or motivated by renunciation, which would then also be the basis for the development of special insight that will eliminate the afflictions. So then, let's look at Dechen's question, but is absorption a mental factor or not? In order to do that, actually, let's look at the questions that I put in the review questions for last week. Actually, let's answer some of them just to make sure that we are all on the same page. So what are a common type of karma abiding? It is karma abiding that is common to both Buddhists and non-Buddhists, just karma abiding. What is a unique or uncommon type of karma abiding? It is one that is specific to Buddhists. And in this context, you can say that what makes it unique can be two things. The first one is the motivation for the development of karma abiding, which is bodhicitta. That's the first thing that makes karma abiding unique in this context. The second one is you can also use bodhicitta or compassion as the object for your karma abiding. So if they use as the object for karma abiding, it's also unique karma abiding. So sorry, I didn't put it on the screen for people. So it means that in terms of your motivation for cultivating karma abiding, you can have, let's say that you think that I want to cultivate calm abiding in order to develop insight, in order to be able to eliminate all my afflictions and thereby to become Buddha. So your motivation is bodhicitta. But for your cultivation of calm abiding, you will initially choose to focus on a Buddha image. So from the point of view of your motivation, it would be a unique motivation, bodhicitta. From the point of view of the object is not necessarily unique in a sense that even a non-Buddhist can choose to focus on a Buddha image in order to develop calm abiding. It is possible. Anything can be used as an object of calm abiding. So even a non-Buddhist can choose to focus on a Buddha image. And a Buddhist can choose to focus on an image of Jesus Christ, for that's enough. If they want to develop calm abiding, just single point in concentration. It's better to do it if you focus on a Buddha image, because then you focus on a virtuous object. So altogether, unique or uncommon types of calm abiding can be explained from the viewpoint of the motivation or from the point of view of the object. If the object is bodhicitta or compassion. Then let's look at the following at question 11. Is it concentration? Is it necessarily calm abiding? So in order to answer that, let's look at the definition of concentration. The definition of concentration is a single pointness of mind with respect to an imputed object. So Dechen, kind of in your email, so Dechen sent me an email yesterday. In I think the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive, there is a definition of concentration, and it is said that it is called samadhi, a deep level of concentration or something like that. But actually, the definition of the mental factor concentration taken from the text on minds and mental factors just refers to a single pointness of mind. All of us have it. Regardless of whether or not we are Buddhists, regardless of whether or not we are practitioners of concentration, all of us have some level of concentration, and we use the mental factor of concentration in order to develop deep level of concentration. So I think that what is described in the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive is a type of concentration that can be developed, but it's not that if it's concentration or samadhi, it's necessarily that, because everyone can have it. So the question was, if it's concentration, is it necessarily calm abiding? No, you can have simple concentration. My concentration now, the mental factor concentration in my mind is concentration, but I haven't attained calm abiding yet. It's not a concentration that is a calm abiding concentration. So then the second question, if it's calm abiding, is it necessarily concentration? What do you reckon? So Georgia nods her head to yes. Yes, and you're correct about it, because also people at home, let's see, no. Well, Jason, I hope that, yes. I hope that you said no to the previous question. The definition of calm abiding begins with saying that it is a concentration. So if it's calm abiding, it's necessarily a concentration. All right. The third question, if it's absorption, is it necessarily calm abiding? Calm abiding is concentration, right? When you attain an absorption, you have a mind that is in a state of absorption, so that you have a consciousness that is in a state of absorption. Consciousness can have main mind and mental factors. So if it's an absorption, it could be a main mind. It could be also the mental factor of wisdom.
Hey.
Right, so it could be, if it's an absorption, it could be the mental factor of wisdom. It can be the mental factor of faith. can be the mental factor of mindfulness. There are different mental factors which are in the retinue of a main mind that is an absorption. So if it's an absorption, it's not necessarily concentration, because it could be a main mind or it could be other mental factors.
So what was the answer? Yes or no? So no. Yeah.
You believe in the bottom line, don't you?
Yeah, look, is it yes or no, Yaki, for goodness sake?
All right. So, you know,
No.
I feel that my arm is twisted and I will say no. Yeah, you've twisted my arm and I'll give you my last price is no. If it's an
Okay.
absorption, is it necessarily karma abiding? No.
Okay,
For example,
thank you.
the main mind of the first absorption. If it's karma abiding, is it necessarily absorption? Well, here the question, I feel that my question maybe is not too clear. So you can go two ways with that. You can say yes and you can say no. So you can
Oh my
say,
gosh.
that's for you, Dechen.
Yeah, thanks, Yaks.
No worries. Don't say that I don't like you.
Yeah, right, I won't.
So when you attend karma abiding, you attend the access to the first absorption. So you can say that if it's a karma abiding, it's not necessarily an absorption because it could be an access to the first absorption. That's one way that you can go with that. Or you can say if it's karma abiding, it's an absorption because it's an access to the first absorption, and the access to the first absorption is subsumed out of the first absorption. So anyway, my question was not clear enough. So if you said yes, if you said no, I would accept both of them because I was not too clear. Or you know, even if the question is clear, you can argue both points, and then you get double the points had it been like a real exam. So that's the fourth question. Let's look at the last one because I'm over time. I apologize for that. If it's an absorption, is it necessarily not a desire around mind? What do you reckon? If it's an absorption, is it necessarily not a desire around mind? I'll put the chart on the screen just to make it easier for you guys. Pooja or Catherine, sorry. Catherine says no. So if it's one of these absorptions, first, second, third, fourth, or absorptions of the formless realm, are they necessarily not a desire around mind? Sorry? According to the chart, and you're correct. So if it's an absorption, it's definitely not a desire around mind. Definitely, hands down, not a desire around mind. All right. So I apologize for confusing all of you.
Okay.
But also I take delight in confusing you. So, so let's leave it here for now. If you're still so think about it. If you're still confused about it, let's continue to speak about it in the next few days. And hopefully with things like that, as you get used to the terminology and you get used to thinking about it and also connecting the dots, bit by bit, things start to settle down in the mind. So if you find that it's still confusing, don't panic. Take shelter, don't panic.
Thanks, Yax.
All right. Let's do some serious dedication. Due to this virtue, I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. May the precious Supreme Bodhisattva not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. In this land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. O powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remember until samsara ends. You uphold the subduer's moral way, who serves as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Majana's victorious doctrine. who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, protector of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. Thank you very much, and apologies.
Yeah, right, sure.
Well, so I remember there was some BSP sessions that I had before when I was studying this material, or also translating for it. I felt as if I was lying on the road and a truck just ran me over. If you feel like that today, it's okay.
You're progressing.
Yeah.
Great.
Have a glass of water and lie down.
Yeah. Great.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye for now.